Let me ask you something. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and grabbed that little pouch around your belly and thought, I'll deal with this later? Because I used to do the exact same thing. I told myself it was just a bit of extra weight, nothing serious. But what if I told you that that fat right there, deep inside your belly, is silently strangling your organs right now? Not the fat you can pinch, the fat you can't see. And the scariest part, even people who look thin on the outside can be carrying dangerous amounts of it. This video could literally save your life. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly what visceral fat is, why your body is holding on to it so stubbornly, and the fastest science-backed ways to get rid of it. Starting today, no gimmicks, no supplement ads, just real information that most doctors don't even take the time to explain to you. So, let's start with the uncomfortable truth. There are two types of fat in your body. The first is called subcutaneous fat. That's the soft, jiggly stuff right under your skin that you can grab with your fingers. It's annoying, sure, but it's mostly harmless. The second type is called visceral fat, and this one is a completely different animal. Visceral fat lives deep inside your abdominal cavity. It wraps itself around your liver, your pancreas, your intestines, your kidneys. And unlike the fat you can see, this fat is metabolically active, meaning it doesn't just sit there. It works against you around the clock. Researchers at Harvard Medical School have called visceral fat one of the most dangerous types of tissue in the human body. Not because of how it looks, but because of what it does. It releases a constant stream of inflammatory chemicals into your bloodstream. It messes with your insulin. It raises your blood pressure. It increases your risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, dementia, and even certain cancers. And the terrifying part, you can have a lot of it and not even know. A person can be a normal body weight, wear medium-sized clothes, and still have dangerously high levels of visceral fat hiding behind their abs. There was a term researchers coined for this. They called it toffee, thin outside, fat inside. And it's more common than you think. So, if you're watching this and thinking, this doesn't apply to me because I'm not overweight, please keep watching. This might apply to you more than anyone. Now, before we get into the solutions, and we will, I promise, I want to make sure you understand why this fat builds up in the first place. Because if you don't understand the root cause, you'll keep fighting symptoms your whole life without ever winning the war. The number one driver of visceral fat accumulation is chronically elevated insulin. Now, insulin is not a bad hormone. We need it. When you eat, your blood sugar rises, and insulin is released by the pancreas to pull that sugar into your cells for energy. Beautiful system. But here's what happens in modern life. You eat sugar, insulin spikes. You eat again. 2 hours later, insulin spikes again. You're snacking all day. Insulin is constantly elevated. And when insulin is constantly high, your body gets a very specific signal: store fat. Not just any fat, visceral fat. Because your liver, which sits right there in your belly, is one of the first places to get overwhelmed. The excess energy has nowhere to go except to be converted and stored deep in the abdomen. And what are we eating today? Ultra-processed foods, refined carbohydrates, sugar in everything. Bread, pasta, pastries, sodas, juices, sauces, cereals, all of it is spiking your insulin repeatedly throughout the day. And if you've been eating like this for years, your cells have started to become resistant to insulin signals. So, your pancreas pumps out even more insulin to compensate, and more insulin means even more visceral fat. It becomes a cycle that feeds itself, literally. But insulin isn't the only player here. The second major driver of visceral fat is cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone, and when your brain perceives stress, whether it's a deadline at work, a fight with someone you love, financial pressure, poor sleep, even just scrolling through bad news on your phone, your cortisol goes up. And when cortisol goes up, your body releases stored sugar into the bloodstream. Insulin goes up in response. And where does the fat go? Straight to your belly. It's not random. Visceral fat cells have more cortisol receptors than any other fat cells in your body. Your belly is literally a stress magnet. Think about that for a second. Every bad night of sleep, every stressful day at work, every time you skip breakfast and run on coffee and anxiety, you are biologically sending fat to your belly. This is not a willpower problem. This is a hormonal problem. and the solution has to match the cause. The third driver, and this one surprises people, is poor sleep. Not just a little. Sleep deprivation has been shown in multiple studies to directly increase visceral fat accumulation, even without any change in diet. A study published in the journal Sleep followed participants over 5 years and found that those who slept 5 hours or less per night accumulated significantly more visceral fat than those who slept 7 to 8 hours. Not subcutaneous fat, visceral fat specifically. Why? Because sleep deprivation raises cortisol. It increases green, your hunger hormone, and decreases leptin, your fullness hormone. So, you wake up hungrier, less satisfied by food, more stressed, and your body is already primed to store everything you eat right in your belly. Are you starting to see the picture? This isn't just about eating less and moving more. It's about understanding the biology. And once you understand it, the solutions become so much clearer. All right, let's talk about what actually works. And I want to be very clear here. I'm going to give you real evidence-based strategies, not fads, not quick fixes that work for 3 weeks and then stop. Real changes that shift your hormones, reduce inflammation, and help your body release that visceral fat. The first and most powerful thing you can do is reduce your consumption of refined carbohydrates and added sugar. I know you've heard this before, but I want you to understand it differently today. When you eat a piece of white bread, a bowl of white rice, a glass of juice, or a handful of cookies, your blood sugar spikes rapidly. The faster and higher the spike, the more insulin your body releases. And the more insulin you release, the more your body is in fat storage mode. Not fat burning mode, storage mode. Now, this doesn't mean you have to go on a zero-carb diet. That's not realistic for most people, and it's not necessary. What it means is replacing fast carbohydrates with slow ones, white rice with brown rice or lentils, white bread with whole grain bread that has actual fiber in it, sugary drinks with water, sparkling water, or unsweetened tea. That shift alone, just slowing down the carbohydrate absorption, can meaningfully reduce your insulin levels and begin to reverse visceral fat accumulation. And here's something most people never talk about. It's not just what you eat, it's when you eat. Research on time-restricted eating has shown impressive results specifically for visceral fat. A study published in the journal Cell Metabolism found that participants who limited their eating window to 10 hours, meaning they ate within a 10-hour window and fasted for 14 hours, just by skipping a late-night snack and an early morning snack, reduced their visceral fat significantly over 12 weeks without counting calories, without going to the gym more, just by changing the timing. Why does this work? Because when you stop eating, your insulin levels drop. And when insulin drops low enough for long enough, your body finally gets the signal to start burning stored fat for fuel, including visceral fat. The liver starts processing it. The cycle reverses. This is not starvation. This is just giving your digestive system and your insulin a long enough break to do their job. You don't have to do extreme fasting. Even shifting from eating from 7 a.m. to 1000 p.m., which is 13 hours of eating, to eating from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., a 10-hour window, is a meaningful change. Try it for 4 weeks and see what happens. Now, let's talk about exercise because this is where it gets really interesting and where most people are doing it wrong. Most people think that to burn belly fat, you need to do crunches and ab workouts. I need you to hear this clearly. You cannot spot reduce fat. Doing 1,000 crunches will strengthen your core muscles, but it will not specifically burn the fat over them. Fat loss is systemic. Your body decides where it comes from. But here's what research shows works best for visceral fat specifically. 2 types of exercise stand head and shoulders above everything else. The first is high-intensity interval training, what's known as HIIT. Dozens of studies have compared moderate steady-state cardio, like jogging on a treadmill for an hour, to HIIT. And HIIT consistently produces significantly more reduction in visceral fat for the same or less total time invested. Why? Because HIIT dramatically increases your body's production of growth hormone and adrenaline during the workout. And these hormones specifically target visceral fat cells and break them down for fuel. A study published in the Journal of Obesity found that 12 weeks of HIIT training reduced visceral fat by up to 17% without any dietary changes. HIIT doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as this: 20 seconds of sprinting, full effort, followed by 40 seconds of walking. Repeat that 8 to 10 times. That's 8 to 10 minutes of actual hard work. Do that 3 times a week. That's it. You don't need to spend an hour on a treadmill every day. You need intensity. Your body responds to intensity. The second type of exercise that is exceptionally powerful for visceral fat is resistance training. Lifting weights, using resistance bands, doing body weight exercises. Here's the thing about muscle. Every pound of muscle on your body burns calories at rest. Muscle is metabolically expensive tissue. When you build more muscle, you raise your resting metabolic rate. You improve insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells respond to insulin properly and your body doesn't need to pump out as much of it. Studies show that resistance training specifically improves insulin sensitivity in the liver, which is exactly where you need it most for visceral fat reduction. You don't need to become a bodybuilder. 3 resistance training sessions per week, 30 to 45 minutes each, targeting major muscle groups, legs, back, chest, shoulders, is more than enough. The combination of heat and resistance training is genuinely one of the most powerful tools science has for visceral fat. If you only do one thing after watching this video, make it this combination. Now, let's talk about something that almost nobody is talking about, and it might be the missing piece in your journey: protein. Specifically, eating enough protein at every single meal. Protein does several remarkable things in the context of visceral fat loss. First, it's the most satiating macronutrient, meaning it keeps you fuller for longer, which naturally reduces your overall calorie intake without you having to count anything. Second, digesting protein burns more calories than digesting carbohydrates or fat, a phenomenon called the thermic effect of food. Third, and this is the key one, protein minimally affects insulin compared to carbohydrates. So, a high-protein meal keeps your insulin low, while keeping you satisfied. This is the sweet spot for fat burning. Aim for a palm-sized serving of protein at every meal. Eggs, chicken, fish, beef, Greek yogurt, legumes, tofu, whatever fits your lifestyle. Research suggests that around 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of your target body weight per day is a solid target for most people. Don't overthink it. Just make sure every meal has a meaningful protein source and build the rest of the meal around it. Let's shift to something that doesn't get nearly enough credit: fiber. Specifically, soluble fiber. Soluble fiber dissolves in water and forms a gel-like substance in your gut. This gel slows the absorption of sugar and carbohydrates, which means a flatter insulin response after every meal. It feeds your beneficial gut bacteria, which in turn produce short-chain fatty acids that improve insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation systemically. A landmark study in the journal Obesity found that every 10g increase in soluble fiber intake per day was associated with a 3.7% reduction in visceral fat accumulation over 5 years. 10 grams of soluble fiber is 2 apples or 1 cup of black beans or a bowl of oatmeal with flax seeds. Not complicated, not extreme, just consistent. Vegetables, fruits, oats, beans, lentils, flax seeds, chia seeds. These are your allies. Build your meals around plants and protein, and you'll naturally consume more fiber, slow your insulin spikes, and create the internal environment where visceral fat cannot thrive. Now, I want to spend a few minutes on something that might feel a bit different from the nutrition and exercise talk, because I believe it's just as important: sleep and stress management. We already talked about why they matter biologically. Now, let's talk about what to actually do. For sleep, aim for 7 to 10 hours, non-negotiable. I know life is busy. I know there are screens calling your name at midnight, but no diet and no exercise program will fully overcome the metabolic damage of chronic sleep deprivation. A few simple habits make a massive difference. Keep a consistent sleep schedule. Wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. This anchors your circadian rhythm. Keep your bedroom cool and dark. Your body temperature needs to drop slightly to initiate deep sleep, and light exposure suppresses melatonin. Stop eating at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. Late night eating keeps your insulin elevated and disrupts growth hormone release, which normally peaks during the first hours of deep sleep and is your body's primary internal fat-burning hormone. And put the phone down at least an hour before bed. The blue light, the constant stimulation, the cortisol it triggers, it's all working against your sleep quality and therefore your belly fat. For stress, I'm not going to tell you to just stress less because that's useless advice. but I will tell you that chronic cortisol is one of the most underestimated drivers of stubborn belly fat. And there are specific evidence-based tools that lower cortisol measurably. The most well-studied is mindfulness meditation. Even 10 minutes a day of focused breathing has been shown in randomized controlled trials to reduce cortisol levels and improve body composition. Exercise itself is one of the most powerful stress relievers on the planet, but it has to be the right kind. Very long, very intense cardio sessions actually raise cortisol. Walking, on the other hand, is extraordinarily underrated. 20 to 30 minutes of walking per day outdoors, if possible, consistently lowers cortisol, improves insulin sensitivity, supports good sleep, and has been shown in studies to directly reduce visceral fat over time. Simple, free, profoundly effective. Nature exposure, genuine social connection, laughter, creative hobbies, time away from screens. These are not luxuries for your metabolism. They are medicine. There's one more piece I want to cover before we close, and it's about alcohol. I know this isn't what people want to hear, but I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't say it. Alcohol is processed almost entirely by the liver. And when your liver is busy processing alcohol, it essentially stops doing everything else, including burning fat. Worse, alcohol is converted into acetate by the liver, and the body prioritizes burning acetate for energy over everything else, meaning all the fat and carbohydrates you've consumed sit in storage while your liver deals with the alcohol. Regular alcohol consumption is strongly consistently linked to visceral fat accumulation in the research, particularly beer and sugary cocktails. Even moderate regular drinking meaningfully impairs your liver's ability to metabolize fat. If visceral fat loss is truly your goal, this is a lever you have enormous control over. Let me give you a practical picture of what a week of implementing all of this might actually look like, because I want this to feel real and achievable, not overwhelming. Monday morning, you wake up at the same time you'll wake up all week. You drink a glass of water. You wait until 8 a.m. to have your first meal. Eggs and vegetables, maybe some avocado. You're not starving yourself. You just didn't eat at 6 a.m. while scrolling your phone. Around lunchtime, you have a big colorful salad with grilled chicken, olive oil, and beans. In the afternoon, you go for a 25-minute walk. Dinner is salmon with roasted vegetables and a small serving of brown rice. You're done eating by 6:30 p.m. You read a book for an hour before bed. You're asleep by 10 o'clock. Tuesday, you do a 30-minute resistance training session. Wednesday, you do a 10-minute HIIT session. Thursday, a walk. Friday, resistance training. Saturday, maybe a longer walk with someone you enjoy being with. Sunday, rest and prepare some food for the week. That's it. That is the framework repeated consistently over 12 to 16 weeks. And the research is very clear about what happens. Visceral fat decreases, inflammation decreases, insulin sensitivity improves, energy goes up, mood goes up, the body you've been trying to get your whole life starts to become a reality. Not because you found the perfect diet or the perfect supplement, but because you aligned your lifestyle with how your biology actually works. I want to leave you with this thought. We live in a world that profits enormously from your confusion. Every week there's a new diet, a new superfood, a new detox tea or fat-burning pill. And the more confused and overwhelmed you are, the more you spend and the less progress you make. The truth about visceral fat is not complicated. It's just inconvenient. It requires real changes to real habits. Less sugar, more protein, better sleep, consistent movement, managed stress. These things are not sexy. They don't make for good marketing, but they work. They are the things your great-grandparents did naturally before modern food and modern life made them rare. Your belly is not a cosmetic problem. It is a biological alarm system. And the beautiful thing is, unlike almost anything else in medicine, it can be reversed. The liver is one of the most regenerative organs in the human body. Visceral fat compared to subcutaneous fat actually responds faster to lifestyle changes. With the right approach, you can see measurable differences in weeks, not months, weeks. That's not motivation, that's biology. So, I want you to do something right now before you close this video, before the algorithm pulls you to something else. I want you to pick one thing from what you heard today, just one, and commit to it starting tomorrow, not Monday, not next month, tomorrow. It could be walking for 20 minutes in the morning. It could be switching from juice to water. It could be putting your phone down an hour before bed. One thing. Because change doesn't start with a big dramatic overhaul. It starts with one decision made once and then made again the next day and the day after that. If this video helped you see something differently today, if it gave you information that you didn't have before, then please share it with someone you love, because this information could genuinely change the trajectory of their health. And if you want to keep going on this journey, if you want more evidence-based, no-nonsense health information that actually respects your intelligence, then subscribe, because that's exactly what this channel is here for. You deserve to know how your own body works, and you deserve to live in a body that feels good. That starts today.